Well, no sign of the convoy from Mariupol just yet. People have been arriving, certainly yesterday, throughout the day, taking advantage of this UN-brokered corridor as the something of a fragile ceasefire at least continues to hold. There's few indications of exactly when they're going to be here, but OCHA has told us that it seems possible that they might be here before lunch local time. What we do know is that there are 100 people on board from the Azovstal complex, having to travel over 200 kilometers to get through many Russian checkpoints and Russian-controlled territory back into Ukrainian hands. We also know now that there are women and children and males under 18. No men, no adults, and no soldiers at the time. The reception here in Zaporizhia is prepared. It's been prepared for several days. There are many NGOs on hand, from UNICEF to Doctors Without Borders, OCHA, of course, and psychologists as well, who've told us that there is going to be likely a great deal of trauma to deal with. It's now that what a spokesperson from Doctors Without Borders said that they call PFA, psychological first aid, because as soon as they arrive here, that is the moment when the pressure comes off. They've been having to hold on for so long under weeks and weeks of bombardments that when they get back into safety, it's almost like a state of psychological collapse, and that really is what they're going to be looking to try and handle, at least in the immediate moments. Several alarms. We were woken up during the night, during the morning, and we've heard air raid sirens relatively frequently, but the same has to be said for all across Ukraine. We are somewhat closer to the front here than in other parts of the country, but as we see, the way that the system works is that they see a trajectory from missiles that are fired, whether from the Caspian Sea or the Black Sea or in Russian-controlled territory, and everywhere along that trajectory is given an alarm. It's not known exactly how they're coming, and indeed just not too long ago in Odessa, when we saw that strike on the airport, there was very little warning given. Even about a week and a half ago, a strike on Odessa and a block of flats, no warning given at all, because what we were told by military spokespeople was that the missiles altered their trajectory at the last minute. That is also a danger of the area. Number one reason has to be said, it's Ukrainian determination to resist on all fronts. Now, that explains an awful lot, but not all. We've seen the Pentagon state that the Russians have in fact learned from their initial offensive, their initial phase of their invasion. We've seen that the Ukrainians have used shoulder-launched missiles, mostly provided from the west, to great effect, taking out entire columns of Russian tanks. That's one of the reasons why we may not have seen the same kind of columns that we saw in the early phases of the war. Elsewhere, the British Defence Ministry has been speaking of weakened morale and weakened capabilities after these enormous losses that the Russians have taken. Now, it seems that the Russians may not, excuse me, that was a couple of explosions in the background there. The Russians may not have had enough rest before they were sent back into combat after being sent from the Kiev region as they pulled back. Now, elsewhere, we've seen Western arms flowing into the country, artillery, howitzers, radar, drones, mines and missiles, including light weapons as well. These are the largest efforts that we have seen since the Second World War in terms of speed and quantity, and this of course comes after the US Lend-Lease moves to get as many weapons as they can as possible. The Russians haven't been idle. They have been, as you may have just been able to hear, been bombing infrastructure and depots where arms are stocked, and as well as transport points in an effort to prevent these weapons moving towards the east.
Спасибо. И вам всем удачи.
Удачи.
И здоровечка вам.